Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to do some extra material in Chapter 2. It's not extra in that a couple of the things we do today are on the homework, and so we're going to get started. First of all, just a reminder what's due this week. All sections have Chapter 2 homework. Do allow plenty of time to do it because it does take a fair amount of time. This is a fundamental chapter. If you don't get this chapter the rest of the semester, it's going to be an uphill battle. So do spend the time in this chapter. It will pay off later. Section 3 only, you also have a quiz in my accounting lab. This document, if you're attending live right now, it should be pushed out to you. It is a PDF. If you're viewing later, you probably want to grab this document. I created this document to help with debits and credits and working through what's debited and what's credited. So I'm going to kind of use this document to go through 2 journal entries and show you how I could use this document, how it might make sense. So that document is found at http://tiny.cc/debit-credit. This same link is also on Blackboard on our home page. It's one of the numbered items there. So know that you can get it through several ways. I also mentioned it in class on Wednesday, so it's just a one-page document. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assume that you have that, and even if you don't have it printed out, it's okay. We're going to walk through the steps on that document coming up here. So what I've got on the screen right now is an example journal entry, and well, the scenario for a journal entry. If Jones Company pays $600 for repairs to a drill press, what's the journal entry? So what we're going to do is we're going to use this document that I pushed out, this 4-step process to figure out what to debit and credit. I'm going to talk through it first, and then I'll show the journal entry here. So the first step says pick one account that's affected by this transaction. So when I go through here, I see Jones Company pays $600. That's the easiest kind of situation I see. When I see the word pays or paid, that means we have cash involved 9 times out of 10. So I'm going to say to myself, okay, when I'm using this handout, the debit credit handout, step 1 says pick one account that's affected by this transaction. So I'm going to say it's cash because I see that they're paying something. So step 2 says, is this account you picked in step 1 increasing or decreasing? Well, if we paid out cash, then cash is decreasing. Okay, so step 1 I picked cash. Step 2, I said cash is decreasing. And now for step 3, what type of account is this? And we have several choices listed on that handout. And the first choice says assets, something that has future economic benefit. For example, cash, accounts receivable, inventory, etc. Well, cash is right there. So it's cash. So step 3, my response is cash. And then step 4 says combine your answer from steps 2 and 3 to find out whether you debit or credit the account. So I look at this table in step 4 on the handout. I see assets. How to decrease an asset means I'm going to credit cash. So I know for this journal entry, I'm going to be crediting cash for $600 because I walked through steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, I repeat steps 1 through 4 for the other side of this transaction. Now, what's really cool about this is if I have a credit for $600, I know I need a debit for $600. So the only thing I need to do on the second pass through is figure out what account. And basically on this, my account is going to be repairs expense, and because I'm making a repair. So what we see on the screen now is the journal entry. I'm going to start with the date, and this date's just made up, May 5th. And I'm going to debit repairs expense for $600. Remember, our debits always come first in the journal entry. That's the way it's done. It's wrong if it's not first, if the debits aren't first. And then I'm going to credit cash. That was when I walked through the worksheet, I figured out my credit to cash. So I would skip a line, indent, because all credits have to be indented, and put it in the credit column. And then that last line is an explanation line or a memo line that says what this journal entry is for. So that's how to use the handout to figure out a journal entry. Now, lots of these journal entries are very standard. I wouldn't necessarily go through the handout on every single one. There's some very standard journal entries. Repairs expense, if you have any kind of expense for cash, this is what it's going to look like. We could substitute miscellaneous expense in cash. We could substitute entertainment expense in cash, or we could substitute office expense in cash. So any kind of expense we pay cash for, the journal entry is going to look like this. We'll just substitute a different word for the word repairs. So we're going to try one more journal entry before we go on to the homework. And we have, if Thorson Company issues common stock for $50,000 cash, what's the journal entry? We've done this one before, but this one is so common, I want to walk through it again. So let's use the handout again. So step 1 says pick one account that's affected by this transaction. So when I'm looking through here, to me the thing that jumps off the page all the time is going to be that word cash. And I see 50,000 cash. Okay, so there's cash, and I love dealing with cash because cash is easy to envision what's happening with it. So what I'm going to have here is I have cash in step 1. Step 2 says, is this account increasing or decreasing? Well, if the company issues common stock for cash, the company is getting cash, so cash is increasing. So step 2, I would say it's increasing. Then step 3 says, what type of account is this? And it says, the first choice is assets. So I look through those accounts, kind of find what it is. Cash is an asset. So then in step 4, I see that to increase an asset, I'm going to debit it. So I know for this journal entry, I'm going to debit cash, and then I'm going to credit something for $50,000 as well. And what's the other thing involved here? What are we getting cash for? We're getting cash for common stock. So what we see then is we're going to debit cash for $50,000, and that was the cash that the company is getting. And then we're going to credit common stock for the $50,000. And then we have that memo line or that information line there. So what we have now is we've done 2 journal entries with that handout. I think the handout can be quite useful as you're walking your way through, and the advice on journal entries is to just take it step by step. Start with one step. I always like to look for cash first because cash is easy to envision what's happening. Is cash increasing or decreasing? Once you have one side of your journal entry done, then you know what the other credit is, and you just have to find an account name for the other side. So it becomes not too bad if you get one side. Now, this example, issuing common stock for cash, this journal entry is going to look the same every time you do it. And on an exam sheet, I would tend to want to put that journal entry on there. That's one of the more common ones, issuing common stock for cash. You always debit cash and credit common stock. So you have the debit credit handout. So that's a step-by-step how to do it. Next, just a reminder that we talked about this in class this week. I just want to bring it up again, that these debit credit rules, absolutely something I would have on my sheet. Next up, in class on Wednesday, we did short exercise 2-9, and we didn't do one little question at the end of it, so I wanted to talk about that briefly. So short exercise 2-9 is telling us we had to do a trial balance. And so we prepared the trial balance. We did that. We listed the accounts in their proper order. Remember, on a trial balance, we start with the assets, then liabilities, then equity, then revenue, then expenses. Now, that's fine. And within assets, the most liquid assets are first, so cash is always first. So we did that. But this last sentence, how much was First Mortgage Company's net income or net loss. That's what I wanted to talk about here. So here was our trial balance. So again, you have this from Wednesday. This was Wednesday's class, how we got to this. So the question is, what was the company's net income? When we calculate net income, we would take revenues minus expenses. So down at the bottom, I put First Mortgage's net income is $11 million. How I got that is I took their revenues of $38 million minus their expenses of $27 million. And that's what I did for that one. Okay, so that was just a real quick question. We know that net income is revenues minus expenses, but I just wanted to point that out. Next up, I'm going to have do short exercise 2-10. This one, interestingly enough, I've already gotten some emails, questions about it. I've got some Ask the Instructors about it, and I've been telling people to come back and watch this from today because we're going to walk through it. Now, short exercise 2-10. I put a screenshot up of what it gives us. It gives us this trial balance. So in exercise 2-10, it gives us a trial balance. So they've done the trial balance that we just did. We just did one in 2.9. Well, they went ahead and did it for this exercise. So we did this trial balance, and then up at the top right-hand corner, I was trying to squeeze it in so I'd get it all on the same page. I put the requirements. So the requirements for this exercise are compute these amounts for the business, and that's up in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. So my requirements are compute total assets, compute total liabilities, and compute net income or net loss for December. So we're given this trial balance. Given the trial balance, let's go ahead and compute these numbers. Okay. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is look for total assets. Now, total assets, what we have to do is we have to look through the trial balance for the assets. Now, a trial balance is listed in a very specific order. A trial balance lists all our assets first, followed by all our liabilities, followed by equity, followed by revenues and expenses. Now, the assets are given in a particular order with the most liquid assets first. But when I'm looking to get my total assets here, I can simply say, well, I know it's going to be the first several accounts, just a matter of how many of those we use. So we see cash, we see accounts receivable, supplies, land, equipment. Those are all assets. So when I add those up, I'm going to add those assets up, and I get 88,500, I believe. I would just add the 5,400, the 18,300, the 2,500, the next number, the 40,600, and the 21,700. I believe those add to 88,500. So that's the answer for total assets. And I bet you can guess what we're going to do now for total liabilities. Now, for total liabilities, what we're going to do is we're going to go down and grab the two liabilities. There's accounts payable and note payable. We don't go any further than that because common stock is part of equity, and the question's asking us for total liabilities. So when I add those two numbers up, I get $48,900. So that's the answer for total liabilities. Now, the next one is a little trickier. Net income or net loss during December. So this one, what we need to do is we need to look through and think about what net income is. Net income is always going to be revenues minus expenses. So when we look at our trial balance, we know we've already used assets, we've already used liabilities. I'll get to the question in just a minute here. Okay, so I'm going to answer that question. Let me finish this and then we'll come back. Okay, so we've done assets, we've done liabilities, okay? And then next it's asking us for our net income or net loss. So the question is, what's our net income or net loss? And yes, you're right. Krishna, that is absolutely right. To get our net income or net loss, we take revenues minus expenses. So what we see, our revenue is $63,600. All our expenses there, salary expense, rent expense, utilities expense are subtracted, and what we get is indeed the $19,900. Now there was a question about how come you're doing a balance sheet, equity is usually a part of liabilities. Okay, when we do a balance sheet we have assets and then we have liabilities and equity. This is a trial balance, which is not a balance sheet. A trial balance is simply a listing of all our account totals. And why I only did liabilities is because the problem only asked for liabilities. The requirements for the problem were, requirement 1 was to get total assets, requirement 2 was to add up total liabilities, and requirement 3 was to get net income or net loss. So we're doing a trial balance and we're answering the questions. So it didn't ask us for total liabilities and equity. We know what it is. Total liabilities and equity has to, we could add that up if we wished, but it didn't ask us for that. So we're just simply doing what the problem asked for. And we are not doing a balance sheet. A balance sheet is one of the financial statements. A trial balance is not a financial statement, one of the 4 major financial statements. So we're just answering these questions here. Great, great. So any questions with that? Does that make sense? This one's actually pretty easy once you see it done, because they've done all the hard work for you, listed everything. I'm going to assume we have it, and we're going to go on to another homework problem. We have one more homework problem. And this one is short exercise 2-13. And this one's kind of fun because we're doing a couple different things in here. And it tells us, so just looking at what we've got here, Robinson Investments began by issuing common stock for cash of $200,000. The company immediately purchased computer equipment on account for $56,000. So the problem tells us first to set up T accounts. And T accounts are a way to represent accounts in our ledger. So they want us to set up 4 T accounts, and then to record the first 2 transactions in the T accounts without using a journal, and then show that total debits equal total credits. So we're doing a variety of things here. But the first thing we're going to do is set up the following 4 T accounts. So they're telling us we want cash, computer equipment, accounts payable, common stock. So what we're going to do for that is we're going to make 4 T accounts. First one's cash, then computer equipment, accounts payable, and common stock. And I'll wait for a minute and let you write that down. So we have the 4 T accounts, and T accounts are simply representations of the accounts, and they're to hold the account activity. As a review, T accounts always get debits on the left, credits on the right, no matter what kind of account it is. And as a further review, just looking at what type of accounts these are. Cash is an asset. Computer equipment is an asset. That's furniture, fixtures, and equipment, or property, plant, property, and equipment. Accounts payable is a liability. It means we have to pay our vendors or suppliers. We have common stock, which is an equity account. Remember that on Wednesday we talked about what kind of normal balances accounts have. Assets have a normal debit balance. liabilities have a normal credit balance. Equity has a normal credit balance. And again, those kind of notes that we took on Wednesday, I would absolutely put on my exam reference sheet. By the way, Sunday or Monday, I am going to be talking, issuing information about our exam coming up, because our exam's the week after next week. So next week I'll be talking about the exam, and then in this session on Friday, I will be talking about the exam as well next week. So, okay, so we've done step 1, and step 1 says set up the following T accounts. So we just did that. Now, step 2 says record the first 2 transactions of the business directly in the T accounts without using a journal. So even though it said not to use a journal, let's just talk about these 2 transactions. The first transaction began by issuing common stock for cash. Well, when we issue common stock for cash, we did one of those at the very beginning of this session today, and when we issue common stock for cash, we're going to be debiting cash and crediting common stock. So that's the first transaction. And then purchasing equipment on account is we're going to debit computer equipment because we have an asset, we're increasing it. And on account means accounts payable or accounts receivable. Accounts receivable has to do with customers of ours. This isn't a customer, this is what we owe, so it's accounts payable. So first one, let's go back. Okay, so that's kind of an overview of these 2 transactions. So back to the first one, issuing common stock for cash of $200,000. We said if we're going to issue common stock for cash, we're going to debit cash. We're going to debit cash for $200,000. So I'm going to write $200,000 in the T account. I'm writing it on the left because debits are on the left. So I'm going to write that in the $200,000 in the left column of cash. Now the other side of this transaction, the journal entry, the credit would be to common stock. So you're going to see me write a $200,000 credit in common stock. So that is what the journal entry would actually be. I would be debiting cash, crediting common stock. But we've done this without doing the journal entry. We've put it directly into the accounts. In real life, we would never, ever, ever do this. We would write the journal entry and then post it. And in this exercise, they just want you to see how T accounts work and what we can use them for. So with, again, that first transaction, we issued common stock for cash, so we're going to debit cash, credit common stock. Now for the second transaction, so we're still on requirement 2, we're doing the second transaction. The company immediately purchased computer equipment on account for $56,000. So if I purchased computer equipment, I have an asset, and that asset is increasing. So I'm going to debit computer equipment for $56,000. So you see I have a $56,000 debit to computer equipment. Remember, in a T account, the debits are always on the left. Now I bought that on account. This is a liability, so I'm going to use accounts payable. I'm going to credit accounts payable for the $56,000. So what I've done is I've done requirement 2. I've recorded the first 2 transactions of the business directly in the T accounts. Absolutely, it makes a huge difference which side you put it on. Debits go on the left, credits go on the right. When you do the homework in My Accounting Lab, it's going to look just like this, just different numbers. But make sure you get them on the right side, on the correct side. And then the last requirement says to show that total debits equal total credits in our account. So what we're going to do there is my total debits, I'm going to go through the T accounts and look for everything that's on the left-hand side. So I have $200,000 in cash and $56,000 in computer equipment. Those are both on the left side. Those are my 2 debits, so I'm going to add those up, and they equal $256,000. Now, account the credits. I'm going to add up my 2 credits. I have a $56,000 credit to accounts payable. I have a $200,000 credit to common stock. And I'm going to add those up and get $256,000. And I have just shown that my total debits equal my total credits there. So remember, when you see something on the left-hand side of a T account, doesn't matter what kind of account it is, those are debits. Everything on the right-hand side are credits. Our debits always have to equal our credits. Okay, so that exercise isn't too bad either, and yeah, so yeah. So anyways, so that brings us to the end of the homework. And what I want to do is, first of all, if you have any questions, you can write them in the chat window. But what I'm going to talk about right now is I'm going to take this time, just a little bit of time, and talk about the exam a little bit. So this is a little advanced heads up on what's coming up. Our exam is coming up on September 22nd to 24th, which is the week after next. Your exam is going to cover chapters 1, 2, and 3. We've done chapters 1 and 2. Next week, we are doing chapter 3, so then the exam covers all of that. Now, there will your exam will be available Monday, September 22nd through Wednesday, the 24th. If I were you, I would definitely plan on taking it Monday. There will be some sort of bonus for taking it Monday. I will give those details next week. So you might want to clear your calendar for Monday. Plan on taking that exam Monday. The computer lab will be extremely crowded Wednesday, so you don't want to wait till the last day. But the exam is going to cover those 3 chapters. Your exam will be in My Accounting Lab. There will be a practice exam in My Accounting Lab available starting next week. It's required. It counts as a quiz, but it will give you a feel for what the exam will be like. The exam will include homework problems. It will include multiple choice questions, and the practice exam is a good way to prepare for it, and I will be putting together more information for you this weekend. Now, where you take the exam depends on what section you're in. If you're in section 1 or 2, you will take the exam in the computer lab in the College of Business. And that's where you run a risk of having to wait in line. It's a very real risk, and we'll talk more about that next week. But so 1 and 2 take it in the computer lab. If you're in section 7, 8, or 3, you're going to take it online with ProctorU, and you take it, you have to take it like in your own room, and you'll take it online. And again, you don't wait until the hour that it's due. You take it before then. But I'm going to talk more about that. But the exam is designed, I would say most people will finish the exam on average in about 45 minutes. Now there's a lot of variation in individuals. Some people will take less, some people will take more, but I've designed it to take roughly 45 minutes. I will be putting out a sheet that says how many questions are on it, but typically you'll have 3 or 4 exercises and maybe 25 multiple choice, somewhere in that range, but don't hold me to that yet because I don't have the exam created. But so you'll have, that's kind of the general overview of the exam. You will be able to use a plain calculator. There'll be a calculator in My Accounting Lab you can use. And if you take it in the computer lab, they have plain calculators you can use. You can't use a programmable calculator on the exam. You can have one 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. writing on both sides. You can type it, you can write it. You just have to be able to read it with the naked eye. So you can't use a magnifying glass on it. And it has to be one sheet of paper. You can't have two pieces taped together or anything like that. So, and these are getting into really nitty-gritty details, which we'll talk about next week. But the exam, I will be putting out a practice exam. The best thing you can do is practice the homework. Make sure you're reading the book. It will be over things that we've done in class. It will be over the book. Basically, those first 3 chapters, you need to know it. And I'll put out more information in the next few days, probably Monday. It's going to, Sunday or Monday, you're going to see more information coming out. There is an exam tab in Blackboard that you can click on that gives you more information right off the bat and gives some of those exam rules and details like that. So, does anyone have any questions? The exam will have to be completed by Wednesday early evening at the latest, but we'll talk about that. You can take the exam anytime. You have to, anytime depends on which section you're in. If your section's 1 or 2, you can take the exam anytime the proctor lab is open. Roughly, proctor lab hours are 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., except you have to start it by 7 p.m. They will not let you start an exam after 7. Wednesday, I cannot emphasize enough the need to plan to take it before noon. It's going to be a zoo in the proctor lab on Wednesday. Now, if you're in section 7, 8, or 3, the answer for that is anytime Monday starting at 9 a.m. you can take it. If you're in section 7, 8, or 3, you will be scheduling your exam with ProctorU, and you have to schedule at least 72 hours in advance. So you can take it anytime, but you do schedule. If you don't schedule in advance with ProctorU, they'll charge you, I don't know, $6 or $7 convenience fee for taking it on demand. But again, you're going to be getting information. I'll send information to your section so you'll know exactly what you have to do. But no, you take it pretty much any time within proctor hours if you're proctor lab, otherwise within the time frame. If you're taking it via ProctorU, you have a lot more leeway on when you take it. You don't have to worry about lines, but you do have to get it in before the end of proctoring hours. And I think I have it on Wednesday that you have to start it by 4 p.m. on Wednesday if you're taking it on ProctorU. Any other questions I can answer? And again, we'll talk more about this. You do not make an appointment in the computer lab. The computer lab, you just go and wait in line. There are no appointments in the computer lab. There are only appointments on ProctorU. So computer lab, you just show up, you take your chances, you wait in line. The earlier in the day you go, the better it is. Early morning is good. Monday, there will be a bonus for taking the exam on Monday. That bonus will not be given for any other day. It's period Monday, period. If you take the exam Monday, you'll get a bonus, and I don't know what that bonus is yet, and that will come out with the information when I talk about the exam on Monday. If I issue it on Sunday or Monday, I'll have that bonus information available. But I would still be absolutely looking at your calendar and kind of planning on Monday. It's about, I would say most people 45 minutes. You get a maximum of 2 hours on the exam. Are the exams the same setup as the homework? The exams will be in My County Lab. They will look very similar to the homework. There will be multiple choice ones also. Now keep in mind, on an exam, you do not have the Help Me Solve This. You do not have the Ask My Instructor. You don't have the video buttons. You don't have the e-text buttons. So in that respect, they're different. But it is in My County Lab. It's going to look and feel the same. And I have a practice exam that has those buttons so you can get help when you're practicing. But yeah, so it's going to look like that. You want to know Monday have exam, whether have a class. See the syllabus, but there is no exam. There are no classes the week we have an exam. So we actually will not have class Monday or Wednesday the week of the exam, because I don't want to have new material going on at the same time that exams are going on. That just gets really ugly. So during the week of an exam, your job is to take that exam. Okay. Any other questions? Again, I'm going to have much more information. I'll put information out on Blackboard. Good, good. I'll put information out on Blackboard forthcoming. And then this session today, next Friday, I will take any questions on the exam as well. But I just wanted to give you a little heads up on what's coming. Any other questions for today? Okay, well, I hope you have a good weekend. Remember that the Chapter 2 homework is due this Saturday, and a quiz if you're in Section 3.